Hello and welcome to the program. I am Folashade Ogurinde. Recent data released by the National Bureau of Statistics indicates that Nigeria's gross domestic product grew by 3.98% in the fourth quarter of 2021. This is the strongest growth since 2014, according to the second quarter GDP report. The report further showed that the fourth quarter growth accounted for annual growth of 3.40% in 2021. But some sectors showed some surprising results as well as potentials. To discuss further on the details of the NBS GDP report, Dr. Muda Yusuf, the Chief Executive Officer of Center for Promotion of Private Enterprise, joins me on the program. Thank you very much for your time. Now, the annual growth rate of 3.4% is the highest the country has recorded in 7 years. What do you make of this?
Yeah, well, it's a welcome development, but we need to situate this within the context of the drivers of this growth. Obviously, there's a very strong base effect in this growth outcome because we are talking about year-on-year growth. So when you compare the performance of the economy in 2021 with the performance of the economy in 2020, it's only natural that you have a considerable improvement, especially if you look at the fact that 2020 was a year of recession. We had the hardest challenge, the biggest challenges around COVID. There was a collapse of crude oil price. There was very massive restrictions in movement. There was a lot of disruptions in the supply chains and so on and so forth. And many sectors were under lockdown in 2020. So when you compare that with 2021, when economic activities were beginning to pick up, when the restrictions were beginning to be relaxed, when global supply chains were being restored, when the level of vaccination across the world has increased, it's only natural that you have this kind of very significant improvement. So it's not so much about whether we have done anything so dramatic. I think it is more about the fact about what the baseline that you are comparing with. But that is not to take away the point that some interventions have also impacted the economy, like interventions encapsulated in the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. We have seen some recovery in terms of oil price. Our oil price in 2021 recovered significantly compared to what we had in 2020. And of course, generally, economic activities globally and domestically have also recovered. So basically, these are the key drivers of performance. It's not as if something superlative has happened. It's more about first the baseline and the fact that we are seeing a gradual normalization of economic activities.
Now, a closer look into the report shows that quarterly GDP growth fell to 3.98% in Q4 2021 from the 4.03% and 5.01% recorded in Q3 and Q2 respectively. What can you attribute to this fall?
Well, generally, the Q4 data, I think it's not so significantly different, because if you compare 3.98 to about 4.30, very, very marginal difference. But having said that, the challenges that we know that the economy has been facing are largely around the macroeconomic space, which has to be the high inflationary pressure, the sharp depreciation in the exchange rate, which has been significantly affecting a lot of businesses, particularly the small businesses. Many of them do not have the capacity to absorb some of these macroeconomic shocks. And of course, you have the persistent insecurity problem affecting some sectors, particularly the agricultural sector and to some extent the agro-allied sector. So these are basically the factors that must have been responsible for the slight slowing of the economy in Q4. But again, just as I said, the decline is very marginal.
Now let's talk about Nigeria's manufacturing sector, which recorded a real GDP growth of 2.28% in Q4, an improvement, I must say, from the corresponding quarter of 2020, but lower than the preceding quarter of Q3 2021 by 3.08% and 2.01% respectively. How does this reflect on the manufacturing sector?
Well, it's not good enough for manufacturing sector. The sector players have been complaining a great deal about issues of foreign exchange. First, the issue of liquidity in the foreign exchange market. They cannot get foreign exchange to import some critical inputs, equipment, and raw materials. They're also grappling with issues of purchasing power because the cost of productions have gone up significantly. And it is not in all cases that they can pass on these costs to their consumers. So they have to absorb some of these increases in cost, which is affecting their profit margin. So that again is also taking a toll on their businesses. And of course, they have the regular issues of the high energy costs. Last quarter, the cost of diesel went up significantly. Diesel is already deregulated. And because of high oil price, the cost of diesel has been going up at some point. Even as we speak now, it's well over 400 naira per liter. So that again is compounding the problem of operating cost and production costs of manufacturers. And the higher the production cost, the more challenging it becomes for them to be able to sell their products. It's even worse for some of them whose products are competing with imported products, especially from Asia. It makes it difficult for them to grow their capacity or even to sustain the current level of their production capacity. Then you have the perennial issues of the ports, clearing cargo at the port, the processes, the extortion, and all of that. All of these things are weighing heavily on the Nigerian manufacturing sector. That is why we have seen the sector struggling in terms of growth and even struggling in terms of their contribution to the GDP, which is very, very minimal.
Let's shift our focus now to Nigeria's ICT sector, whose contribution to total nominal GDP declined in Q4 2021 from 10.58% recorded in the same quarter of 2020 to 9.88% in Q4 2021. What do you make of this?
Well, the ICT sector is one of the fastest growing. Even during the pandemic, it was growing. So if there is any slowing down of growth, it's because of the fact that it has been growing consistently. So the benchmark or the baseline is a fairly higher baseline for which you compare. So you are not likely to see a very significant gap in terms of improvement because it has been improving consistently. Even during the worst of times, the ICT sector was doing well. And it's one of the fastest growing sectors, attracting quite a lot of investment and supporting quite a lot of other sectors. But some of the high performing sectors are also leveraging ICT. So it's one sector that holds a whole lot of promise for growth, for development, and also creating a lot of opportunities for the youths in order to tackle the growing problem of unemployment.
Well, Dr. Muda Yusuf, the Chief Executive Officer of Center for Promotion of Private Enterprise, I thank you very much for your contribution.
Thank you very much.
I'll take a breather here, but Money Matters will be back shortly. Just stay with us. Welcome back. Nigeria missed its crude oil output target for January 2022, pumping 1.46 million barrels per day against a target of 1.683 million barrels per day as approved by the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC. Officials of the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources and the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited said the country's continued inability to meet its output target has caused a repeated plunge in oil earnings, leading to the monthly drop in the NNPC's remittances to the Federation account. They have attributed Nigeria's prolonged inability to meet its OPEC production quota to the spate of oil pipelines vandalism, delay in the full implementation of the Petroleum Industry Act, among others. Joining me to make sense of all of this is Mr. Diron Fawibe, the Group Chairman, CEO of International Energy Services Limited. Thank you very much for joining us. What's the cause of Nigeria's declining oil production? Please help us make sense of this.
Well, for quite some time now, Nigeria has been having some problems in meeting its production level targets, either based on the budget that gave about 1.8 million barrels per day, or even OPEC that gave Nigeria quota about over 1.6 million barrels per day. And this has been attributed to a number of factors such as the aging facility in the various oil production fields. Because when you have aging facilities, it tends to reduce your production capacity, either in terms of pipeline or in terms of flow station and all whatnot. Because once you produce, you have to transmit the oil produced from the various oil fields through flow stations, through pipelines, and then ultimately to the export terminal. So over time, Nigeria has been having problems about investment. You know, what it translates to is that many of the oil companies are not putting in new investment to renew the facilities. And some of the facilities have been old. Over time, if the business is going pretty well, the oil companies should be renewing, changing some of these facilities from time to time. Now, another factor is that of vandalism. That is, some of the facilities are being vandalized by people in the oil-producing communities. People that wouldn't really know. And this could be as a result of oil theft, and then some due to sabotage. The oil theft translates to the fact that there are many people who want to siphon crude oil from through pipeline, and they will board the pipeline and try to siphon crude oil. And in the process, they damage the facility, they damage the environment, because invariably you have oil spillage as a result of this oil theft. And people who are engaged in sabotaging the production facility and the economy. This translates to the fact that some people who wants to get some people in the community, they want oil spillage in their area, so that at the end of the day they will put claims on the oil producing company and then file for claims about oil spillage and environmental degradation. In recent times, we've seen some of Nigeria courts or even overseas courts awarding heavy damages against oil companies. But some of them were not due to natural mistakes or of the operational mistakes on the oil company. Some of them were due to sabotage. And at times, it's pretty difficult to be able to prove this. So it's the question of your word against mine. The word of the community against the oil companies, and the oil companies keep protesting about some of these issues. So it's a combination of factors that has reduced the capacity of Nigeria to meet OPEC quota or even the budget quota. The only saving grace we have now is that the price of oil has been going up. Only a couple of days ago, the price in the international market for Bonnet Light, which is the premium Nigerian crude oil, was being quoted for $95 per barrel. And so, which means that to some extent, we were earning some, if we are, whatever we are able to produce, we will be getting higher value as a result of the price increase. Last year, for example, 2020 to 2021, Nigeria was said to have met a shortfall of about over 80 million barrels of oil. And if you calculate this volume, by way of revenue, so much revenue was lost to Nigeria as a result of the underperformance in terms of production.
Now, what impact is this likely to have on the economy?
Well, the effect is pretty clear. Clear in the sense that if government has targeted a particular volume of oil, the way we structure our budget every year is to take a benchmark, both for production level and for the price. And that is what we use to estimate government revenue from oil. And then if we are unable to meet this target, it means that there will be a shortfall, and then the reduced ability of government to be able to get enough funds to implement the budget. And we know that a few weeks ago, what is topical in the Nigerian as government circle, especially when we combine that with the issue of subsidy that government has postponed for another 18 months, is that government will be going to borrow money to implement the budget. Okay, on one hand, government is having a shortfall in terms of revenue accruing from oil export. On the other hand, government now has to pay so much money, on subsidy, because with the increase in the price of oil in the world market, it translates into increase in the price of refined product being imported into Nigeria. And given the fact that the price of product fuel in Nigeria is regulated, pegged at 165 naira per liter. So the government was now under the obligation, compulsorily has to pay the difference between the landed cost of fuel in Nigeria and the pump price, at which the consumers, motorists are buying fuel. So it's like a double jeopardy, affecting the economy. Government is now meeting its target. So government will now have to borrow money to implement budget, which is very unfortunate. Although it used to be said that, at any point in time, government can have a budget deficit, and then you look for money here and there. But if you are meeting your production targets and revenue targets, it gives government the ability to reduce the budget deficit, all things being equal. So now it's a double jeopardy on the economy. So, and the impact is not favorable to Nigeria.
In a broader sense now, what exactly are the implications, especially if Nigeria continues to miss its OPEC quota?
What now? You mean with the implication if we are not able to meet our quota, because OPEC expects us to meet our quota. You see, if over time Nigeria is unable to meet its quota, it means that our quota will have to be reduced. If you are able to meet your quota, you have established a basis for when the quota is being set for member countries, then the ability to meet your quota is one of the factors. Current targets is one of the factors that will be taken into account. There are a number of factors being considered by OPEC. You have to look at your reserve, and that's the crude oil reserve. Now, we cannot say that crude oil reserve is actually increasing because for quite some time now, there has not been too much. There has not been reasonable level of exploration. It means that when you are not exploring for more oil, you will be producing what you have in your reserve. So if the reserve factor is being considered, you can be at a disadvantage. Now, your production capacity is also one of the factors. If, for example, we are able to produce, say, we have capacity to produce 2 million barrels per day, 3 million barrels per day. When you have excess capacity over your current level of production, it means you have spare capacity. And then if there is any sudden demand for oil, then you'll be called upon to increase your level of production, because that will mean that you are falling back on your spare capacity, to meet increase in demand for oil. But when that is not the case, you don't have that kind of leverage, then it means that you are reducing your capacity. And when OPEC is now rationing or talking about countries that will now increase their production level as a result of the increased demand for oil, then you'll be left out. And if one is in such situation for over a period of time, it will mean that such country will not be reckoned with when we are talking about quota. So what in effect I'm saying is that it will only be reasonable if government is able to re-engineer the oil and gas industry in such a way that there will be increased exploration to improve our reserve. That's number one. Number two is to find a way of removing some of the problems, the challenges we are currently facing while we are underperforming. And I've mentioned quite a number of them: the aging facilities, then the vandalism, and governments try to reduce this by giving contracts to some communities, to some people in various communities who will be watching over these facilities to reduce the level of vandalism and sabotage. But it appears as if this is not being effective. In the news over recent times, we know there are a number of illegal refineries being deactivated, by various governments. River State government, for example, has been at war with illegal refiners, and these illegal refiners are actually engaged in oil theft. And when they engage in oil theft, it's not by conventional means of oil flowing into such illegal refineries. They actually causing a lot of problems with the production process. So these are some of the issues that we have in the country. So government will still have to redouble its effort, and the Upstream Development Commission has been in the news in recent times. Try to roll out some of the measures they would take, or determination to ensure that some of these problems are overcome. And the oil companies will not be happy if they are putting money into their business, and some unscrupulous people are going out there to see the oil, to damage the facilities. Obviously, it will then be reducing the profitability of their business in the country. And ultimately, some of them would find it difficult to continue with the business. Yeah, that's probably one of the reasons why some companies are trying to divest, especially in onshore and shallow water terrain, and wanting to concentrate on deep water, where sabotage and pipeline vandalism cannot cannot be present.
Mr. Faribe, let's talk solutions now. What needs to be done to push up production?
Well, some of the things to be done I've mentioned, and that first, if the causes have been identified, the root causes of underperformance in terms of production have been identified. Aging facilities, it means that there has to be refinancing, of some of these facilities and then development of facilities, so that to renew the aging facilities, either pipeline, either flow station, and all whatnot. Then secondly, there has to be, government has to reduce to the barest minimum the pipeline vandalism, either resulting from people wanting to do illegal refining or people wanting to siphon oil and ship them to overseas, and or people wanting to cause damage to the pipeline and then ask for compensation as a result of the environmental problems that have been caused through this type of behavior on the part of the unscrupulous people that engage in such activity. And government has to now revisit, the consultant or the communities for which they have given them the assigned agreement for them to oversee the environment and to ensure that sanity is maintained in the oil-producing communities. Now, the understanding government is reaching with these communities appears not to be paying off, because if you are spending hefty sum of money every now and then with people in the community, the understanding is that they will oversee, the environment and ensure that the people who engage in acts of sabotage, either vandalism or oil theft, are checked, are checkmated. So, but that appears not to be working well. Government has to go back to the drawing board with a view to ensuring that there is sanity in this area, so as to improve the oil production and export for the country.
Well, Mr. Diran Faribe, the Group Chairman, CEO at International Energy Services Limited, thank you very much for your contribution on the program. And that's it on this week's episode of Money Matters. Many thanks for watching. I am Folashade Ogorinde. See you next time.